And we're back on. All right, Mr. Taylor, we were asking how your father met Dr. King and what your interactions were with him. I know you told me a funny story about how you were a typical teenager and where you were wanting a lot of action and he was telling you to go back there. He didn't want that. That's a fascinating story.
We was in a march, and when I got about 16 in that area, they was up front singing "We Shall Overcome," and the crew that us teenagers, we was kind of rebellious, you know.
That's unusual.
They on peaceful march, and we was on another type of march. We was singing derogatory things. If you want your freedom, you got to take it. You know, you can't just sit back and sing for freedom. You got to do something. So as young people, we was pushing, and they stopped, came back there and told us. I mean, basically, me and two others, hey, we're not gonna have that. But they kind of prepared us as we got teenagers. We would go to classes on how to cover up to keep from getting hit in the head. And when we go to sit-ins and things, be prepared to be spit on, be smacked.
Look, can I ask you with Dr. King? You said you were kind of mad at him a little bit for taking him away, but when you were with him, what are some of the recollections that you have of him and your dad together? I mean, what are some of the things that I mean, obviously he's grown into this legend that is, we talk about him once a year in schools, but what was the man like?
He was very sharp. I mean, articulate, very articulate. He had visions. I mean, a lot of times I would butt in, but my mother would make me leave the house, etc. Because I used to question Dr. King, for example. I would tell him, he was mentioning stuff to me about Gandhi's methods and application, and I'm trying to tell him about Malcolm X.
Oh, really? And that was kind of a rival for Dr.
Yes,
King, wasn't
yes,
it?
it was. Yes, it was. And my dad, seeing that I was going to the left instead of the right,
Right.
and Dr. King asked me personally, he says, do you actually think violence is the key? And I was trying to explain to Dr. King that I took a class, and I used B.F. Skinner, I used B.F. Skinner. If you put 3 mice or 3 rats in a cage, this one go up, ring the bell, and get a piece of cheese. The second one go up, ring the bell, get a piece of cheese. Third one go up, ring the bell, doesn't get nothing. Over a period of time, the survival of the fittest would take on. And he says, well, where did you get that concept? I says, B.F. Skinner. He says, do you really think that works with human beings? And I was trying to explain to him, if you keep suppressing people, sooner or later they will retaliate. And he says, that is not the proper way to deal with this situation today. And I didn't too much care for that.
That's amazing that you had a discussion with Dr. King about Malcolm X and the differences in philosophy. That's now your father obviously was more, I guess, obviously your father had to be more in the line with Dr. King then.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Almost. Well, basically, in that era and time, the ministers of the community were the leaders of the community, and they would follow basically the pastors, etc.
Right.
Because I really got the concept of what they was trying to do the first time I went to the National Baptist Convention. All the black ministers in America was following Dr. King's strategy. That's where, and you're supposed to go back to your community and tell them nonviolence is the way. So that's how basically they got the movement moving all in one direction.
I posed this to our class yesterday, the nonviolent, how you would react if you saw a mother, a brother, or sister hit or spit on. And the practice of nonviolence has got to be the most difficult.
It's hard.
It's got to be, because the natural reaction is if you see somebody that you love or you see somebody that is being hit or hurt, is to retaliate or to strike out. And to do the opposite of that has got to be, I think for some people it's even hard to imagine, and especially today when everybody, just wants to retaliate. That had to be a hard thing to pass along to people, wasn't it?
Even today, as a human being, your nature is to retaliate. For a good example, the Bible says, if someone strikes you, turn the other cheek. Well, I'm 60-some years old now, and I still haven't reached that pinnacle yet. But I'm growing. I have come a long way, but I'm growing.
Yeah.
So you can imagine at 15 and 16. Oh, no.
That had to be. I just can't imagine. I mean, I'll be honest. I can't imagine that kind of discipline that it would take to go against what you would say would be almost an instinctual response to that kind of.
But you have to remember, majority of the leaders were ministers and followers of Jesus.
Right.
So therefore, they instilled, how would Jesus retaliate? So that's how they basically got the minds of the people in that controlling,
Right.
let me say, hypnotizing. Because us young people, we didn't see it that way. But
I can imagine.
we learned to accept it because we followed the majority at that time, and we wasn't the majority.
And I'm sure that Dr. King was such a magnetic leader that it helped that there was somebody at the top that was so inspiring or had so much sway at that time.
Dr. King was awesome. I mean, some of the things that he went through, like basically every time we went in the South, they arrested him.
Right. Right.
They'd whoop him, give him but they didn't kill him. So, but he knew one day that it was coming, because I remember him telling my dad, he says, Walt, I don't know, I got a funny feeling. He says, we might not make it out of this next one. And Dad would kind of laugh and joke, says, Doc, just carry the Lord with us. When our time comes, the Lord will let us know. And I asked Dad, I said, Dad, are you afraid? He said, yes, on every march, I'm afraid.
I imagine. I don't know how you could not be afraid.
And he asked me, are you afraid? I told him, nah, because I was too young to understand the full concept.
Was your dad with Dr. King when he was in Memphis? So he was there.
Now, right today, my dad has passed, but I remember what my dad told me. I asked Dad one time, I said, Dad, why you don't have no respect for Jesse Jackson? My dad said, because he lied. He told people, Dr. King died in my arms. And then when I looked at the movie and etc., I says, well, where was he, Dad? He says, at that particular moment, he was down in the parking lot when King got shot on the balcony. He said, but Abernathy was right there beside him.
So your father was at the hotel the day that Dr. King was assassinated.
Yes.
That's that's unbelievable. That's your father has been was witness to incredible events in our country. And I take it you weren't there that day, but did he call you? How did you find out that Dr. King had been killed?
on the news.
So you saw it on the TV before he was able to call.
But he called and told my mom, but my mom didn't tell me.
She wouldn't tell you?
She didn't tell me and my sister because my mom sort of knew how I was.
Mm-hmm.
And soon as we heard it, we went outside.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing I know, everybody was moving in a negative direction.
Yeah, I mean there were
Setting stuff on fire, turning cars over.
there were riots in almost all major cities, weren't there? Right afterwards.
And the next day at school, it was just chaos and confusion.
So they did have school the next day.
But then, they had school the next day.
Wow. Did your father tell you any details from that day? Did he talk to you openly about it, or was he just one of those events that it was so traumatic that he wouldn't share? Or what did he tell you?
He didn't say too much to me about that until we was riding home after the funeral, because we went to the funeral.
Right. What was that like? The funeral had to be just
Oh man,
incredible.
it was.
Where was Dr. King buried?
In Atlanta.
In Atlanta. Okay. So
They
wow.
they have one of those flame things. at his
an
grave
eternal,
site.
like an
Yeah,
eternal flame, like JFK.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to pause real quickly, and then Peyton, you've got a question to ask, and then we're gonna get into some new things if that's okay.